Go ahead and call the meeting to order at 5:02 p.m.
5:02.
And I'm going to remind all attendees will be muted during business portions of the meeting. Muting restrictions will be lifted during the public comment portions of the meeting. Each public participant may address the board for 3 minutes. During the public comment periods, those commenting must state their name and address. Any participants who engage in Zoom bombing or other disruptive trolling behaviors will be removed. So we're going to start with election of officers. Should we start with the secretary?
Why not?
Why not? So it's going to be up to Steve or Andrew to make a motion.
I nominate. Oh, go ahead, Steve.
Go ahead, Andrew.
Oh, come on, gentlemen.
Patrick Myron to be secretary. How about this? I nominate that we elect the existing board structure to continue into the next cycle. Just so that Patrick can make his time limit.
Ooh,
Oh, I like it. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Any discussion or questions?
No, let's move to a vote.
Okay. I'll do a roll call vote in alphabetical order. Andrew, how do you vote?
Aye.
Patrick, how do you vote?
I vote aye on your reappointment as president.
You can vote for yourself too. It's all right.
Oh, I don't know if I can. Can you do that?
You can.
Seems good.
Today's the day.
Seems really? Okay, then sure. Aye, all the way around.
Steve, how do you vote?
Aye.
And this is Ann. I also vote aye. So the motion passes 4-0. Officers will continue in their current configuration, which is Patrick Myron as secretary and Ann Donahue as president. Thank you. So I will introduce myself as Madam President, Ann Donahue of the Peter White Public Library Board of Trustees, and I am physically located in Marquette, Michigan. And Andrew, welcome back. We're happy that you
Yes.
continue to serve.
Thank you, buddy.
I was premature in my parting speech. Andrew Dalian, trustee.
Patrick?
Where are you at?
Oh, Marquette. You're in
Yeah,
marvelous Marquette, Michigan.
I can tell. Let's see, Patrick Myron, trustee, secretary, I guess, again. And I am in Marquette, Michigan.
Steve Schmunk, trustee in Marquette, Michigan.
Great, thank you. Are there any changes or additions to the agenda?
No, move to approve the agenda.
Do we have a second?
Actually, Andrew, I did have something.
Sorry.
I know we're under.
Hold on the motion.
I know we're under time pressure, but maybe we could talk about the audit at the next meeting. I mean, I just had a couple questions. It doesn't have to be now, but we got the audit in the mail and just had a couple questions. It doesn't have to be this meeting. And then maybe in the future, we could put just something on the agenda where we could ask questions or comment on the report. So much is in there and there's some great information. I'd like that to, it doesn't have to be this one. I know we're under time pressure, but.
Well, I mean, there is a section at the end of the meeting for standing reports. And we can certainly do that tonight, even if Patrick has to leave, that's fine.
Right.
We don't have to.
It's usually been a silent part of the agenda. I think, almost there's not many comments or even presentations, which I understand no presentations, but if it's okay to comment, then that's good to know. Yeah.
Absolutely, yes.
Okay.
I'm sorry if I didn't make that clear.
That's okay.
And if I can just mention, depending on how complex the questions are, we might want to have the people from Anderson Tackman actually be present.
On the audit,
yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, some of the general questions I can answer, but there's some I feel more comfortable having the actual auditors in.
Yeah, pretty general, but yeah, thanks.
Yeah. And Steve, in the past, pre-pandemic, when we were meeting face to face in the good old days, there typically was a fair amount of discussion on the individual reports at the end of the meeting. And I guess it just sort of that setting facilitates a conversation where this one's kind of like, are we done?
Yeah.
As long as so. But anyway, just a little background is all.
Understandable. Thank you.
Yeah.
And even though Patrick has to leave, we don't have to end the meeting, correct?
No, you please take your time.
Oh, yeah, it's not that we have to be finished at 5:45, okay? It's just that Patrick has to leave. So,
I am finished. Yeah.
so. Okay, are there other questions or changes to the agenda? Okay, if not, may I have a motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
Do I have a
This
second?
is Patrick. I will second.
Any questions or comments or discussion? Okay, Andrew, how do you vote?
Aye.
Patrick, how do you vote?
Aye.
Steve, how do you vote?
Aye.
And this is Ann, I also vote aye. So that passes 4-0. Are there changes or questions or corrections to the minutes of the previous meeting? I didn't have any, I don't think.
No.
No, I'm good. This is Patrick. I'm good. I hope so, because I approved them. So.
Should I make the motion to approve so we get it on the table?
Second.
I don't have any comments either. Any corrections or edits? They look good.
So let's go to a vote. Andrew, how do you vote?
Aye.
Patrick?
Aye.
Steve?
Aye.
This is Ann, I also vote aye, so that passes 4-0. Andrea, do we have a special presentation tonight?
We don't. Ellen was scheduled to be our presenter from the staff tonight, and she has a child performance happening at the high school, which I think is also where a lot of people are this evening, the first and probably only musical performance of the year. So she didn't want to miss that, and I don't blame her. So we'll see her
Absolutely.
later in the year.
Sounds good. I hope
Understood.
look forward to hearing from her, but I hope it's a good night for everybody. Do we have any public comment at this time? Hearing none, I think we will move on to Township Advisory Council report. Carrie, and can you help me with your correct pronunciation of your last name?
It's Hikis.
Hikis?
Hikes.
Nice to meet you. Thank you.
Yeah, nice to meet you, Carrie. Thank you for your time and being on the TAC.
Good to meet you.
So as of last Tuesday, it sounds like their main concern is trying to reopen a recreation area safely. Other than that, they didn't have a whole lot going on at the meeting. That kind of took up the majority of it, is looking at how to reopen. They do have some land they're looking at selling.
Okay. Do you know, I mean, do they have any questions or comments for us? I don't think they have.
Not at this time.
Probably not.
That's good. But thank you for going to their meeting and coming here. We appreciate it.
Yeah.
Sure.
Thank you.
Do you have
It's
any?
good meeting you.
This is my first time doing this, so
Okay,
I have no questions at this time.
right. So yeah, it's well, today's agenda, I don't know how long it is, relatively speaking, but you'll see. We just go through the agenda, which I believe was available online prior. If it's not prior to the meeting, it's available now. And yeah, we just go through, you know, it's financial reports. We're doing a lot of policy review right now, so we'll be talking a lot about that. But, and yeah, we try to get feedback from the Township Advisory Council, and those are the main things, so. Okay, financial reports. Hi, Rick.
Hey, Rick.
Hello, everyone. As I typically do, I always start by asking the board if there's any particular area of either my comments or the financial reports themselves that you would like me to address.
And Rick, I'll begin.
There we go.
So I just want to confirm, because when I read that, right now we have, let's see, that this negative change from last month is because we have increased the backlog of township tax payments. So basically, we're owed some money in layman's terms, and that's billed, but it hasn't been paid yet.
That is correct. So,
Okay,
so I'm glad you asked that question, Andrew, because I did try and put together an estimate of what I think is left from this tax year in the way of township anticipated tax payments. And that's 151,472. And then the city, I believe, will be about $18,000 roughly. So what occurs in March is actually the city and townships close out their collection responsibility for real tax payments, and they turn them over to the county. They then become delinquent. And what I've been able to determine is the county is behind right now in actually processing those. So most of them are the payment that comes from the county, and then the county collects delinquent. The one exception to that is there is still Marquette Township money that's still outstanding above and beyond the delinquent portion of it. They've only, I think, provided one payment so far this year. Let me get. Yeah, one large payment, 109,268, and the anticipated would be about $237,000 is what we are anticipating to receive from Marquette Township. So not all of that is delinquent by any means. So that, hopefully, Andrew, that answers the question on that.
that does. And so when I look at our current cash checking amount compared to April of 2020, it looks like we're 93,000 roughly shy of where we were in April of 2020. And I see that about 64,000 of that, not quite, a little less, is that money that we're due, the backlog of township tax.
Right.
Is the rest of that 93,000 the money that we moved from the fund balance to the budget?
No. The other big reason that it's different is when you go into wages, what you had
that's right.
in
Yeah.
April, you have a 3-payment period, and you're comparing it to a 2-payment period.
Okay.
So
All right.
that's cash that's been spent where it wasn't last year. So when you factor that in, it gets you very close to that 93,000. So.
Okay, so Rick, do we have any concerns that our cash checking are basically, or what I assume is our fund balance, is dropping this year?
At this point, I don't have, first we budgeted that it will drop this year.
Right.
So we built.
I think we said 30,000.
Yeah, I'd have to look at the.
That's okay. You don't have to be.
Yeah, but we did budget. I think that we actually are anticipating spending $50,000 roughly of fund balance. And I think there's a chance that might not have to be the case. It's a little too early to forecast that at this point. But when I look at projections, so the other big piece that comes in after July 1st is 3 months of the next tax tax period from the city of Marquette. So that's about 225,000. So I think we'll probably have $600,000 or $700,000 of cash to finish the year. So I not this month, but last month I was looking at the numbers, and it appears that we have a chance to actually not have to use fund balance to make it work this year. But as I say, as I got the budget information from the city that they request us to fill out today. So I won't be working on next year's budget, but I will start that process of looking at this year's budget more closely, because that's part of that form that I fill out. They ask what you anticipate to finish the year at, and then they're asking for next year's budget. So I'll have a clearer picture for you probably next month on that, Andrew.
That's great. Thank you, Rick. And thank you for everything you're doing with keeping track of all the bills and finances. And this next question, maybe it's for you, maybe it's for Andrea. Maybe it's something for later in the meeting, but I'm wondering, moving forward, I see that we're scaling up we're opening our meeting rooms. There's money coming in from rentals. And I'm just wondering, do you see revenues increasing for the library next year beyond the tax revenues that we receive? And the reason I ask is because, in the past we talked about, if we can keep building that fund balance, maybe it's an opportunity to also share some of that with our employees who have been working really hard through this pandemic, and giving them some recognition.
I do think we will see some revenue outside of taxes in the next fiscal year. We will start reinstituting fines with the new fine structure that's in the circulation policy that's up for approval this evening. That will start again. We're projecting that'll start after Labor Day. So I don't foresee seeing any of that really impact our current year budget, but certainly next year's budget, we should anticipate seeing some level of fine revenue, as well as getting Unique involved in the process for collections. We are doing away with DVD fines, that's presented in the circulation policy. So that will be a level of revenue that does not come back post pandemic. Do we even say those words yet? In maybe September. So there will be some. I think it's important to, we also have a fund balance policy that's up for review for a first reading. And I think it's important to take a look at that policy through that lens, of what we want to use fund balance for. I think fund balance really should be used for one-time expenses and of a more capital nature. It's very difficult when you get into giving staff increases out of something like a fund balance, because you have to be able to fund those in perpetuity. You can't give people a raise and be like, it's here this year, but not next year. So I think when we talk about fund balance, we want to be real careful about what we're talking about using those funds for, because it really should be for a safety net and for those one-off more capital expense type of expenditures. That's my 2 cents. I don't know if Rick, you have anything to include?
So I just looked up the number again. So the fact that we're behind in our operational revenue at this point by 63,000, what you're actually comparing is from 2020 up until March, we're running all normal on operational revenue. And of course, this year up until now, we've been in a pandemic state that's reduced the operational revenue. So that's why I'm seeing already a trending of that up, because now the activity level is starting to come up, and that creates that operational revenue. If you got the doors closed, yeah, the operational revenue is pretty minimal. You know, so it's not ever going to return, because DVDs have been eliminated back to where it was, but it'll get much closer to it. So that'll be some positive revenue that we can start to forecast in for next year. And I agree with Andrea's comment that the fund balance really does need to be carefully used. And I think it's good that we're going to have this policy review. So yeah, it shouldn't be used for operational purposes, because it is something that you have to figure out how to fund every year going forward. And if you do it 1 year in fund balance, yeah, you got to do it the next year and the next year, and eventually you're at a zero fund balance, and then you're scratching your head saying, now where are we going to get the revenue? Yeah, but those are great questions. Thank you.
And
So
I could ask one more.
Sure.
I noticed that there was revenue on the vending machines, and that really surprised me. Are the vending machines running? And I saw that Outlanders closed, and they're going under a new ownership. And I just wondered if I guess I assumed that, oh my, we lost our vendor for our vending machines, but maybe I was mistaken.
The vending machines are not operational right now. We are buying vending machine snacks and putting them in the staff lounge. And so that money that's coming through the vending line is actually staff money for the snacks that are in the lounge.
Okay.
Brett and I have been talking about the vending machines and what we think makes sense for reopening those machines. I'm not sure we'll go back to the sandwiches. We were losing quite a lot of ground financially on those sandwiches. So with Outlanders closing too, it's maybe like we need to look at other options for that machine. The other machines make money easily, but that sandwich machine was kind of dragging down the overall the overall revenue, because we were not selling all of them. So we were giving them away, throwing them away. It's not really the scenario that we were hoping for with the sandwiches.
And I guess the other point the board would be interested in is it those sandwiches are also very labor intensive, in that because they have such a short shelf life, Brett literally had to run 2 to 3 times a week and get new sandwiches. So that wasn't even being factored into it. It was just
into the cost.
wasn't making money just based on the waste factor. But if we factored her time in, yeah, that would have even been a major thing. So as much as I like Outlanders and wanted to support them, it's like, it just didn't make sense. We tried it, and the volume just never really grew, and to make it a profitable operation.
Well, and I think
work that was about.
I think too that, I mean, we've tried a few different angles of offering that level of refreshment, if you will, and none of them have really seemed to not even be profitable. We've lost money, we've lost product, we've lost vendors, so maybe that is just something that isn't offered. Maybe that's something that you bring. Obviously, I don't think it's like this just sort of impulse purchase. You just don't buy like 4 sandwiches out of a machine because I just don't think you do. You go to Border Grill and you bring it back, or so maybe that real estate has other stuff that seems to last longer and actually sell through. I don't know. We don't need to, but yeah, I figured that the revenue was mostly Bruce was in there snacking, but I didn't realize the machines weren't open. So somebody else.
Well, and I realized I was remiss in not asking for a motion to talk about uh, the approval of the bills.
Oh,
before-
yeah. We're
Well, we
still
don't have to
adjusting.
start
Ann.
over, do
Oh,
we? Because I
yeah.
don't even remember what I just said. We gotta start over?
Well, I think 1 month we were successful in actually doing the motion first and having the discussion after. But
Oh, wasn't that a
old
good
habits
one?
die hard, I guess.
Yes, they do. You
Sure.
want
You
to
know,
have it now?
Unless there's
Ann,
some
or-
other questions, I
or
don't
are
have
we in
anything
too
on.
deep?
I do.
A
Andrew
motion
set
to
me up.
approve the bills.
Yeah, Andrew set me up well for the areas I wanted to comment on. Thank you, Andrew.
There we go.
Okay.
Happy to do it, Rick. I think you read my mind by this point. Pain in the butt that I am.
Brett, did you have a?
Oh, I did just want to mention that I attended a meeting minutes taking class online a few weeks ago. And they did say that it is correct to do the motion and the second the way we had been doing it. It's traditionally done differently the way that we're trying to do it. But either way is correct. So I guess it's whatever you guys prefer.
So we can do it the old way because that's what we're all comfortable with.
Yeah.
That seems to be the muscle memory, yeah, but as long as
Yeah.
we're street legal either way.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, they said it's perfectly acceptable to do it either way. So if you want to be a little oddball and do it the way we have, then I think that's fine.
Not us, no.
I like
Thank you,
quirky.
Brad.
All right, so Andrew made a motion, I believe, unless I dreamt that.
Yes, I did, to pay the bills.
I'll second.
Uh,
Steve?
that was Steve
Do we
as a
have
second.
other questions or comments or discussion about the bills?
Very good point.
I do on the report, not specifically with the bills, but I guess it falls under the same umbrella. Rick, this is on page 14. It looked like MERS is usually, we make quarterly payments, but there's some little dribbling in, like there's a couple $1,000. Revenue expense, page 1, it was MERS. Yeah, but usually we just pay quarterly. The big allotments are going quarterly.
Steve, we actually pay twice a year. So we pay in November and then we pay in March. And that's on the defined benefits part.
Sure, I understand that part.
And
Yeah.
then what you see every month is actually the defined contribution part. So we have some employees that now have converted to defined. We've actually closed our defined benefits
Right, I understand that.
MERS contracts, and now any new employees are actually starting on the defined
The defined.
contributions.
Right.
So that's a line that actually will continue to grow as
So
people
that line,
retire and new employees come on. So
so that line is
actually Andrea's the one that we started that process as a board on.
So Rick, on that line is, we maybe want to add the descriptor to that line. It's MERS and defined benefits contribution, defined.
So both of them are handled by MERS, Steve.
Okay,
So
perfect.
one's a defined benefits program, which is the pension program is
Right.
an easier way, a more layman term.
Right.
And then
Defined contribution.
401, you're basically typical. Other option is just you're putting money in and the employer is doing a match. So what you're seeing is a matching process that the library provides to the defined contribution MERS.
And that line is for both.
Retirements.
Yeah, that helps know that MERS handles both of those. I didn't realize that. Can I ask a related question? The only real question I had in the audit was their one line that, and I know this isn't just us, it's really everyone that's putting into MERS says the library continues to carry a concerning unfunded liability. And I know it's not just the library, but everyone probably else has heard about this ad nauseum, but could you just give me, 1 minute thing on how unfunded we are and what that might become? And
Yeah, so not having the audit right in front of me, but it's about $900,000 if I remember the number correctly. So we're, and the state report that I believe I sent you, Steve, will show, so the audit calculates it slightly different than MERS does. So one we're 70%, the other one we're 72% funded.
Okay.
And to give you a little comparison, I don't know what the city is, but the city's been working really hard to try and reduce down their unfunded liability. And where our percentage, I think, went from 68% last year up to somewhere between 70 and 72% funded, theirs actually went in the reverse order. They were at like 63 and they're now like 61 or something like that. So they've lost ground where we've actually managed to gain ground a little bit.
Good.
It's an ongoing battle to try and reduce that down, because
Yeah.
what happened this time, Steve, is actually simultaneously with this, with the numbers that came out, the actuarial criteria was adjusted so that the amount they anticipate to earn on it has been reduced. The amount of years they expect people to live have been increased, and all of that is now getting factored in too. So that's made the picture a little bleaker. Fortunately, as I say, we've moved positive.
Yeah.
I don't think a lot of people with these latest adjustments can say that. So
Good job. Good job.
Very good job.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Let's see.
we've come a long way on that, Steve. That this has been something that Rick has focused on, and we've really chewed into our liability that way compared to what it was even just a couple of years ago.
Very good. Good. Let's see, another, these are minor, but Rick, this is on page, I'm just going to go by the packet, page 16. There's a Fund 371 Library Improvement Debt Fund, and there's an expenditure for professional contractual debt service in Fund 371. And I understand contractual services in our main budget. We've talked about what's part of that, but could you tell me what's in that Fund 371 professional contractual debt service?
You're muted, Rick.
Oh, Rick, you're muted.
that's the money that the city actually completely manages for us. So it's the money that comes in to pay off the renovation bond.
Oh, okay. Okay,
So
perfect.
that's what that is.
Okay. Thanks for that. I appreciate it. That's the only questions. Thanks for bearing with me.
Absolutely.
Other questions or comments about the financial reports or the bills?
I have none.
Okay,
No.
hearing none, I'll take a roll call vote to approve the bills. Andrew, how do you vote?
Aye.
Patrick, how do you vote?
Aye.
Steve, how do you vote?
Aye.
This is Ann. I also vote aye. Motion passes 4-0. Thanks, Rick.
Yeah,
Was
thank you,
there a
Rick.
second?
Yep, thank you, Rick.
Thanks, everybody.
I missed who seconded that motion.
That was Steve.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
Brett, how could you miss something? I'm just kidding.
I had Brett written down, actually. Pretty sure it was Steve.
Hard to do. Like when we're in person, it feels a lot easier to keep track of that stuff.
Everybody messes up once in a while.
I know.
No, not you. Come on, get out of here.
Okay, moving on to policy approval. So now we get, either we can make a recommendation or have our discussion. What's your pleasure, people?
I opt for the old way of just discussing first.
Okay. Does anybody have any questions or comments about the policies that were presented at the April meeting?
No, I think we had pretty good discussions on most of them then. I don't know, was all that resolved? Steve, was there something hanging out there that you wanted to
No,
see differently on there? No?
no.
Okay, may I have a motion?
This is Patrick, so moved.
You have to read the recommendation.
Oh.
Page 22.
Really? All right. The Board of Trustees of the Peter White Public Library moves to approve the following policies as presented. These policies will become effective on May 19th, 2021. Circ-1 library card policy, Circ-2 library of things policy, Circ-3 collections use policy, Circ-4 interlibrary loan policy, Lib-4 small group study room, and MGT-2 records retention policy.
Do we have a second?
I'll
I
second this.
hope so.
Steve
Steve?
seconded.
Steve?
Are there questions or comments? No, hearing none, I'll take a roll call vote. Andrew, how do you vote?
Aye.
Patrick, how do you vote?
Aye.
Steve, how do you vote?
Aye.
This is Ann. I also vote aye. The motion passes 4-0. Thanks.
Very
We're
good.
on to the credit card policy. This looked pretty straightforward to me. I'm glad to have it. I think it's a good idea.
Oh, yeah.
Does
Yeah,
anybody-
a lot of this really just came directly out of that financial management guide. And Rick did make a suggestion that we give no leeway for interest or late payments, which I think is probably really good to have in this policy. That should certainly be the exception if there's a crisis and not the rule of what's accepted. So
Mhm.
I think it's pretty sound policy.
Are there questions or comments on the credit
Um,
card policy?
Yeah, Andrea, like roughly how many cards? Like department heads and stuff?
Yeah, I think right now, do we have 7?
Yeah.
Does that sound
Very
right?
good.
We probably have 9 or 10 because you're thinking of youth service. Sarah delegates a lot of that purchasing. Yeah. So,
Mhm.
so I think there's 4 cards alone in youth services. So most of the rest of them are the department heads.
Department heads and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah,
How do I?
youth services does a lot of purchasing for craft materials.
Yeah.
And a lot of times the folks who are creating the program will just buy the supplies that they need when they're out doing their other shopping.
Yeah.
It really is a lot easier. The library I came from, our maintenance guy did all the shopping. And he would go to Walmart sometimes with these lists that you wouldn't believe, like blue M&Ms, only blue. Like who's gonna find that? So on
Interesting.
the one hand, it is a lot of credit cards, but for things.
No, I actually don't think it is at all for the amount of staff really. And obviously, people are going to keep track of them and use them responsibly and as needed. And yeah, I mean,
The last place I worked, everybody had a credit card. Like you just got issued one when you got hired. It was part of the deal.
do you still
And
have it?
I'm accustomed to purchase orders. You had to get a purchase
Oh, yeah.
order for everything.
Yeah, first you
Yeah.
need a requisition, then a PO, and then yeah.
It's the
So I'm
beauty.
kind of the reverse.
Yeah.
So Andrea, my only observation was if there was misuse, it's going to result in the revocation of the card or criminal charges and or termination of employment. If there was misuse, would it need to be part of the policy to reclaim that misused funds?
I'd have to check on that. That's a good
Yeah, like
question.
restitution. That may be part of the criminal. Yeah, I suppose that would be just to unauthorized use of a.
Mhm.
Because
And what I've experienced in the 8 years, it's never, the intention is very minor, and it's that they grab the wrong credit card out of their wallet and then they write me a check right on the spot that gets deposited, and that's how we handle it. So we pay it, and I get a check and I show it as part of the documentation that goes into the
Reconciled.
city that the employee is recognizing they in error grabbed the wrong credit card. That's understandable.
Yep.
to happen because they'll have their personal one right next to their employee one. So
I've done that on
that's
more than
been-
one
yeah,
hotel for work. Yeah. It's-
yeah. So that's how it gets handled.
And I can totally understand that mistake would happen occasionally, and yep, that's no problems there.
Yeah, I
I'm
mean,
just
that's
wondering if we
misuse.
get that rare outlier, do we need to have the policy cover that situation? If not, great. But if I wouldn't want us to get stung because someone found a loophole.
Mhm.
And that would be my only concern.
Yeah, I
if
mean,
you got
maybe it
Evil
could-
Dalian working over there and he
Right.
decides to run over and buy a Toyota car on the credit card and then say, oh, okay, go ahead and fire me now.
Yeah, again, there is credit limits, so boom, that would not even go through buying a car.
Maybe a used one, but yeah.
Yeah,
You'd,
so-
and yeah, maybe you put something in there like in full restitution will be sought or.
Yeah,
I don't know.
I'll check with Gary over at the city on what good wording we might be able to use in that way.
Sure. Yeah, good point, Andrew.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
I'm a very bad man.
Rick, just on a related note, or Andrew, do you put any alerts on, like anything over $200, you get a text message or anything? I mean, I've had a card probably every year I've had to compromised, and then I get a text, like, okay, time to get a new card. Anyway, with that many cards out, I wonder, do you put anything on if there's like no card present? Anyway, it's just a thought. You guys know how to handle it.
I don't know. I don't know what kind of options we have through Flagstar.
We
I'm
do.
sure there's something.
Yeah, they do. Yeah,
That is another good point. Thank you, Steve.
I'm sure, Andrew.
Patrick, I know you have to run. I just want to know if you have any input on I'm jumping ahead a tiny bit, but the summer board.
Oh. So we got June 15th.
You want July off, Patrick?
Oh, yes, I do.
Thank you. That's what I wanted you to say.
Perfect. Yes. I was just thinking, boy, I remember back in the day, we used to take the July off, but I thought with Ann now, no can do, tight ship. Yeah.
The month I actually remembered was August, and that was actually, I think, the 2 years before the fiscal year was changed by the city.
Oh, that's right.
And so what happened is you actually have critical activity that needs to take place in August of approving budgets and such. So that's how I remember that not continuing to be a practice.
Right, in August. Okay. Yeah, perfect. Well, thank you for the early out in the hall pass. And yeah, everyone wrap this up and get on with your evening. It's gorgeous out there.
Yeah.
Brett, I will get you signed copies of last month's minutes tomorrow.
All right, sounds good. Thanks, Patrick.
All right. Thanks, everybody. Have a great night.
Bye,
Thank
Patrick.
you.
Okay, but back to the credit card policy. We did talk about restitution and whether or not there are any alerts for spending limits. Are there other questions or comments about the credit card policy?
So the only thing as I looked at it again today that I'm thinking might be beneficial for the staff is actually the process for getting the Michigan sales and use tax exemption. That's a form that we submit over to the city to get that. So I know with new staff, it's kind of well, how do we do this? Because nowadays people just don't take your word that you're tax exempt because you're part of a government. It's like, show us the paperwork. So there is a form that I submit over to the city, and that might help clarify things especially with the new employees that aren't used to this process.
Okay,
And I used to carry as a teacher the tax ID form or letter with me, just so if a business questioned me, I could say, well, hold on, let me run out to my car.
Mhm.
Yeah, the city doesn't like us to do that. They like to have a form for essentially each event that takes place. So unless you're setting up an account with a vendor or store where we're getting a tax exempt status put on our account, or not even account, just like our status within their system. But for any like even not major, but the city kind of likes those forms to be generated for each purchase, which adds a little bit to the confusion because staff will get to the store and be like, I'm ready to purchase my things. And then, oh, it's a much bigger ordeal than that. So I think Rick's right. That might be a good addition into this, just so staff are aware that that's part of the process.
Good. Thanks,
So
Rick.
here's a tangential question. Would it make sense to, especially for youth services, if I'm assuming, and I could be wrong, that they probably hit the same places for their supplies, to have a running account for the library there?
We do in some stores, but a lot of the stores, they don't offer that.
Gotcha.
So we do have an account at, like, an example is Menards. But a lot of the stores just don't do that.
Gotcha. Okay.
Those days are
It's also
gone.
kind of hard to keep up on, if that makes sense,
Mm.
with staff turnover. It's hard to keep the list even at Menards with, who is eligible to purchase there. So I sure would hate Rick to have to be maintaining several different
That's a good
store
point. Thank you.
accounts. Yeah.
Yeah, I think we had something at Best Buy too, along that lines, but of course they've left the community now. So.
Well, it sounds like we have some good questions and additions to make to that policy. So thank you. Moving on to the fund balance policy. Another great addition. And it looks, I mean, I found it pretty straightforward. Well, I'm going to be honest, I'm not intimately aware of the Governmental Accounting Standards Board Statement number 54. But
that makes two of us, Ann. So, yeah, so.
good.
Yeah. So again, this is a lot of this comes from that financial management guide, and the policy that went out in your first packet maybe looked a little shorter than this, but it was actually longer. I think one of the pages didn't scan properly or pull through the copier or something. So this second version is actually stripped down and it's 2 full pages. So the most important bits are really here at the end, talking about the minimum that we will carry in the general fund balance, and how a surplus fund balance is generated should that occur. I don't know, Rick, do you want to talk any further about this policy?
I looked at it this afternoon with the page that wasn't there. So it's like, oh, I don't know what. So is this the one that Gary suggested? I
went back to I think I put a copy of it on your desk. I went back to the Clinton Macomb policy.
Okay.
And
yeah, and I gave that to Gary. And so
yeah.
I just got it back today, and I wasn't sure what was in here. So I'll look at it closer. Yeah.
Yeah. There was a lot in the financial management guide, a lot of detail on some of this, and Gary Simpson over at the city read through it and said, if I were you, I would take a lot of that out because it just adds confusion and it doesn't really help to clarify anything. It just adds a lot of things that we don't do, a lot of the funds we don't have. So to add more detail about funds that we don't really even use or have seemed kind of contradictory to what we're trying to do here, which is clarify what the fund balance should be used for, and how that process works.
I do have a question, and it's related to number 5, which is on the second page of the policy.
Sure.
It says for the general fund, the library will strive to maintain an unassigned fund balance that will be no less than 20% of the general fund expenditures. What are the general fund expenditures? I mean, is that
Our operating budget.
so like the roughly 2 million?
Roughly 2 million, yeah.
So that would be about 400,000.
Yeah.
Okay, that's what thank you. I just wanted to be sure I understood the terminology correctly.
Related to that, what do we have now? You could find it faster than I could, and or know it probably, Rick.
It's 620,000 or something like that. It's, let me get to the exact number. It's 621,773.
Okay,
So if you go to your balance sheet, Steve, it's the second page, total fund balance.
I would find it, but I can't do Zoom and the PDF very gracefully at the same time.
Okay,
So we're at what percent? Are we getting close to that 30%?
yeah, we're close to the 30%.
Okay. Okay, thanks, Rick.
Well, this is the kind of thing that'll be easier in person, Steve, because you could have a paper packet with you or a laptop, and
Yeah.
you don't have to manage Zoom while you're.
Right, I appreciate that. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Perfect.
when we hit the 30%, we need to get on a spending spree.
No, it says the library will consider one-time expenditures.
Okay. And if we get below 20%, we have to figure out a way to get back up to it.
Mhm.
But there's no timeline for that.
The
was a-
replenishing there might be, I don't.
There was a very complex timeline that was a part of the financial management guide with how many percentages you're under the 20% and what turnaround time that you should have that money recouped in the general operating or in the fund balance. I think cornering us in that tightly might be problematic
I
because
agree.
what do you do if we just have a run of a couple of really bad years and we have to use the fund balance and there's no extra money? And, you know, I just would really hate to have a policy that makes it so that we're really in a corner if we need to use that fund balance.
And Andrew, as an example, that just comes to the top of my head, and we've been doing this the last few years, we've been paying an extra 50,000 in on our pension liability to try and move that in the right direction. And so that's how we've still managed to grow the fund balance a little bit each of those years, but that's what slowed the growth of it considerably.
Okay.
So by tapping in for 50,000.
So I have 3 questions that will, one broad and a couple more refined. For the broad question, why do we need this policy?
Well, it's a requirement. So there's one.
Okay.
Yeah.
And
That answers that.
yeah, I do think it's important though, because having a fund balance policy provides a little bit more oversight. I know it's something that Rick is concerned about. You know, he's worked very hard to build the library's fund balance. And I think, you know, although he is excited about retirement, I think there's a little bit of him that's also a little nervous about somebody else taking over. And so building some safety nets around the work that he's done to really get the library in a good financial position, and I think is really a valid reason for adding a policy of this nature, outside of the fact that it's a requirement.
Yeah.
Because I can see with number 5 that what I would assume would be Rick's concern would be addressed. But all the other numbers were like, whoa, what's all this? Especially 2 and 3. I found like, wow, we don't have all these definitions that I'm aware of. And if we do, I'm not aware of them.
So for two, Andrew, so what we typically are talking about is the general fund, or we call it the operational budget. So we
Mhm.
have that. The debt service, that's the question Steve asked me about. So that is the
Okay.
fund that is dedicated to paying off the bonds. And then we have a permanent fund in the Carol Paul Trust. The
Gotcha.
other two, we do not have any active funds in right now.
Okay.
So three of the five, we have funds that would represent those categories.
And when we were running the bond, we had letter D, the Capital Projects Bond Fund.
We actually, the city advised us not to set up a fund and actually
Oh.
run our expenditures through our operational budget.
Okay, all right.
But we did not set up that I expected to set that up, and they said, no, we just run it through our operations. So
Would we, to streamline it, would we want to strike the ones that we don't use? Just go with an ABC?
Andrea and I talked about that, and it's like, yes, that would simplify it. And if you chose to, if you got into a situation where you had to add those funds, then you actually have to expand the policy before you even do it. So it's a lengthier process if you eliminate them, but it is a clear
Gotcha.
policy then for where we're at right now. So it's kind of at the board's discretion of
It's a
what
trade-off.
you want to do. Yeah.
So Rick, how does this policy make you feel better that like, yep, I mean, and I guess out of that, what is your concern? Because the only thing that comes to my limited mind is, you know, if we get an evil alien again who just I'm going to abscond with all the fund balance, you know, and you know, you know, if there was an evil alien, and they did do that, how would this policy stop him?
I mean, you can't get to the fund balance. Yeah. So you're not authorized to be involved in any of the expenditures, general expenditures. So I'm not sure how you'd ever accomplish that.
Well, not me as a board member, but I'm just wondering what is your concern going forward
So the
about
one
the fund
thing,
balance, and how does this policy stop its abuse?
so, and I haven't, again, I wasn't sure what was going to be in here tonight for discussion purposes. So I haven't reviewed it real carefully at this point. I know the one that was from the state that we were kind of copying, that defined to the board how the fund balance could be expended. I'm not sure if this one does or not, Andrea. That might be something where it would make sense to say, yeah, large one-time capital expenditures. And maybe it is in here somewhere. As I say, I haven't.
At the top, it says for purposes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
And let's also remember that this is a requirement.
Right.
So.
Yeah, there it is.
Well, that's something we could certainly clarify, though.
Mhm.
Does the requirement have to be done
Oh,
by,
okay. So there it is. Yep. Provide sufficient cash flow offset.
does the requirement have to be met by June 2021, or do we have more time?
We have more time.
Yeah, we've been operating for I don't know how many years without one. So it's no one shut us down. So it's like, but at
So
some point we we need to get one because it is an expectation of a library our size that we will have. a fund balance policy, you know. So,
And I would want to meet that expectation, and I think that's a healthy thing. But shouldn't it be a policy that's meaningful and enforceable for us?
Well, do you feel that it is not the way in its current form?
Well, I don't really, besides meeting a check on a box, I don't really understand what this policy is going to forbid or enable besides these definitions. And that we have to keep our fund balance somewhere between 20 and 30%. And if we go under 20%, we got to put it back.
I think
And I, like I said, that guideline made a lot of sense, was very clear to me. And maybe I'm not the smartest tool in the shed when it comes to all this financial stuff. But, you know, when I read over it, I just was like, Rick, I heard Rick has a concern. We need to do this, but then I don't know what it's really doing besides saying, don't go under 20 and try to stay under 30. Is that all we're trying to achieve?
We don't have anything on the books. I don't think we have anything on the books right now that says anything about a fund balance, right? So this is it, Andrew. I mean, this is saying, we need a fund balance. Here's why we want it. Here's the philosophy behind it. It's not meant to be restrictive or keep someone from absconding. It's not that kind of policy. It's saying,
Okay.
we want a general fund and here's what we want, a fund balance. Everyone does. I mean, some organizations say 50% of operating expenses, some other nonprofits, but I've been in other nonprofits, always have a policy like this. It's just it gives you a target. And like we talked about flexibility. I mean, if you go to 18%, no one gets punished. You're just saying, oh, we want to try to keep it up. And if you run into some bad years, like Andrea said, and you need to spend some of it, that's what it's there for. And you don't want the policy to be so restrictive that you can't spend it for what you need to spend it on, because the board's going to have to vote on those expenditures anyway. So I just personally, I think it's a sufficient policy. It does what it needs to do.
yeah, the only thing I'm going to look a little closer is on the one recommended by the state. I think under the fund balance, it had 4 different suggested ways of, so one-time capital purchases and one-time. So where these are real general on regulations, shall maintain, in order to do that, it specifically kind of guided the board on what would be appropriate expenditures to reduce down the fund balance. So, but again, if it was in place, the budget we built this year would not be following that, because we just put it in as a mechanism to offset some of the operational costs. And I felt for 1 year it made sense, but considering, well, it did kind of meet it because it was tied to the COVID situation. So that is an emergency.
Under 1C, it provides funds for unforeseen expenditures related to emergencies.
Yeah, so that's where it was falling under. But I think in the one from the state, it actually further defines those expenditures under the fund balance number down here. So if I remember correctly, so.
Okay.
So, and we'll look into it a little bit more before next month. Yeah.
Well, Steve, that explanation helped, and Rick and Andrea, thank you. I didn't understand what the goal was with this, but besides checking off a box, and now I have a better understanding. So, if it sounds like it will meet the target that you have established.
so. Andrew, neither of us were on the board when the library was in the financial situation that it was when Rick joined. But I have heard stories of not buying toilet paper, not buying hand towels, not buying supplies because there wasn't enough money to do that. So that's a situation that he came into here at the library, and had there been a fund balance policy in place that kind of detailed what kind of fund balance should be expected, the hope is you wouldn't be in that situation where you're not able to buy paper towels for your public restrooms because there's not enough money for it. So, I mean, I think that's really gets, to me, that's what it's all about, is making sure that the library always has enough revenue to operate, even if there's a catastrophe. It gives you that umbrella or that safety net or whatever analogy you want to use to operate until you can figure out how to fix whatever financial situation is in front of you, because we all know there's going to be something. There'll be something coming down the pipe that impacts the library's budget in some way, shape, or form. So if we have a structure that says this is what we want to have for that stability for the library, it just helps overall, I think.
Okay,
As-
that
So,
helps, and I would draw my earlier comments then, because yeah, I just didn't understand
And-
what we were trying to achieve, what target we were trying to achieve, and now I better understand it. Thank you.
and so just to elaborate on what Andrea said, so when I came on board, there was a $70,000 fund balance. And either that year or early in the next year was when the tax tribunals for all the major Lowe's and Walmart and all of them started ticking in. And it's like, Pam, what do we do? And it's like, well, we have no fund balance. The only option we have is looking at closing hours to reduce expenses. So that was done in a 1 month period of time. I mean, that's how quick we had to act, because we had, $90,000 in paybacks to the township of Marquette. So it was a big number, and we had to react really quick. Now, with a fund balance, you could have taken more time to see if there was any other better options out there. But under those circumstances, that's more than our fund balance. Boom, you don't have any other options but figuring out less hours, which requires less staffing, less expenditures, and that's the move we had to make, and it happened in a 1 month period of time, if my memory serves correctly.
All right, that does help immensely. Thanks, Rick. And I regret that you ever had to go through that, and it is even more of a testament to your amazing omnipotency with the numbers.
As I've told the board many times, I'm just looking at the
Amazing.
numbers. It's the staff that follows the guidelines that we put out and makes it happen. So, and as I say, some people leaving and time, and it's just evolved over the course of now 7 years of growing up. But the other thing I remember was, I think it was the June of having a negative cash position in our portion of the city bank account. And it's like going to pay, we have a negative number here. Oh, the city takes care of us. It's like, so, which they do. So we didn't have to stop paying bills or anything, but it was still eye-opening to me is, well, we're running in a negative cash position until taxes come in July. And we've never experienced that since, but that first year was like, wow. It's like,
That's the kind of thing that gives financial people nightmares.
yeah, like we can't, if we're on our own, we couldn't have covered a payroll. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
I like where we are now better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, Rick, and everyone else
Yes,
who has made this possible.
Yeah, it's been a lot of hard work, but clearly it's definitely been worth it. So, are there other? Steve, do you have? So, Andrew, are you comfortable?
I'm totally comfortable now. I understand where we're going with this. Thank you.
Steve, do you have questions or comments?
I'm all set, but just closing loop. So was Rick gonna get more information from number one, or, I mean, later?
If I remember it correctly, it wasn't wrapped into one, because those are real general. I think in the, wherever it is, the fourth one, is that where we finally get to the critical one of fund balance?
If it was after that one. We'll
Yeah,
look
so
back at
in
that.
here, I think in the, they defined a little bit right in that paragraph, if I remember correctly.
Okay.
It should be used for boom, 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 yeah. And they gave four examples.
Okay.
So,
Well,
which
you maybe
could
we're
give
gonna-
Andrew the clarity he's looking for. I'll take a closer look at it.
Okay, thanks. Yeah,
Mhm.
Good.
awesome.
All right, moving on to summer board meetings. So when I started in 2016 on the board, Andrea joined the library in June, and we just started having summer meetings because Andrea was new. We felt like it was a good idea. And then we had the bond issue, and then we had, what did we
Friendly
have?
amendment.
Construction, the Headley override. It goes on and on. But I thought that there were only 9 meetings a year, but I must be wrong about that. So, and that's fine. But the question is, do we want to suspend any summer meetings? And,
Yes.
okay. And so the question becomes, which one makes the most sense? And it sounds to me like July does, but Rick and Andrea, you need to give us input on that, please.
Yeah, I don't think we can suspend the August meeting unless you want to have a special meeting, which seems like you might as well just have a board meeting.
Right.
If we're going to have a special meeting to approve the budget.
Yeah, because that has to, the report I was talking about earlier needs to be furnished to the city as part of the commission packet. And the requirement is our board has to approve those numbers before they go to the commission. So, and that all takes place in August. Now, and it's part of their review process, public review process that Andrea participates in. And then they officially approve everything in their September meeting, but all of that has to be in there when
Rick,
Andrea goes before the commission. So that's all in August. Yeah, so August is a pretty critical month now.
Rick, did you see in Gary's email though? He requested it by the end of July.
Well, I didn't look at it that carefully, but it's, as I say, I can't put numbers together if the city's not going to give us revenue numbers. And that's always the sticking point, is they are reluctant to put those numbers together for us.
Yeah.
So,
Well, I mean, is it a bad idea to skip a July meeting?
I don't think so. One thing that I wondered about though is if we might want to move the August meeting up a week, just because it does push us. We're not terribly late in August this month. I'm trying to remember what
It's actually August 17th.
August 17th.
Yeah, so it's almost right in the middle.
So one option would be to move it up a week. That would give us a little bit more time to get it over to the city. I'm not sure what their August schedule looks like, but that might be an option if we decide to go ahead and skip July, just to move the August meeting up a bit to give us a little bit more time. That's the only thought that I had.
Okay.
yeah, the only other critical thing is the medical, but that typically doesn't involve the board. Yeah, because that's approved in June and goes forward with the 1st of July. So it's more June if we had to get the board involved.
And with rates going down this year by some miracle, I don't think we need to get the board involved. I don't know how our medical rates went down, but they did.
Yay.
Yeah, right.
All blessings.
Yeah. Andrew, what do you think? about skipping?
I think, yes, I would definitely love to skip a meeting in the summer. If it was June or July, whatever works best for the team would
Okay.
be fantastic. And if we want to add in September, or not September, December, while we're at it, I'm okay with doing that too, to make Andrea's Christmas just a little bit better.
Yeah. Steve, what are your thoughts?
I'd echo what Andrew just said.
Okay. So we could go down to 10 meetings a year, but we would skip July and December. But move the August meeting up a week. So it's, you know, the second Tuesday in August instead of the third.
So do you want me to make a motion?
It works for me. I think.
All right,
Go ahead.
the Board of Trustees, the Peter White Public Library moves to suspend the July and December board meetings and relocate the August meeting 1 week prior to its posted date. How's that?
That's beautiful.
I'll
Steve, will you second?
I'll second that.
Do we have any other questions or comments or discussion? Hearing none, I will take.
I
a vote.
offer a friendly amendment that only Patrick has to attend the December meeting. No, never mind.
I'll take a roll call vote. Andrew, how do you vote?
Aye.
Steve, how do you vote?
Aye.
I also vote aye. So we will suspend the July meeting, move and the July and December meetings, and move the August meeting to August 10th.
And
We can
do we
try
have
it.
enough members to make a vote?
Yeah, 3 is a
Okay.
quorum. Yep.
Okay.
So, and we can try it this year and see how it goes. If
Mm-hmm.
we end up, you know, if something comes up and we need to meet in July, then maybe it's not a good idea. So we can change our minds, right?
Mhm.
Okay. So we are on to public comment. Does anybody want to talk to us? Hearing none, we'll move on. Is there old business that anybody wants to talk about?
Don't need to hear about my aches and pains. Anyway.
That's not old library business. You want aches and pains, I can give you a list, but I don't know. Let's move on to new business / board member comment. We do have a vacancy. Thank you, Andrew, very much for graciously agreeing to continue in your role until we find a replacement. We do appreciate it. Being such a small board, it's hard if we, you know.
Happy to do it.
Thank you. So,
Good.
we'll bid you adieu at some point in the future, but we're glad you can stay on. But that does mean we have an opening. I know Carol told me that she has somebody who's interested. Her difficulty was meeting in the summer because she goes away for the whole summer. So maybe our new schedule will be more palatable for her. But if anybody knows someone who would be, you feel would benefit the library, please encourage them to apply through the city's website. And then we have the trustee manual. It's about planning, and I meant to go look up our strategic plan. That didn't happen. That's just the way it is. So, but the back of my mind says our strategic plan goes through our current one goes through 2022. Andrea, can you? Oh, yes. Yay. My memory's not completely gone.
Yep. So really, we need to start working on it.
Yeah. So that's good. So this is a good reminder to start planning for that. And we'll sort of get that on the books. And I know when did we write that one? Was it 16 or 17?
We wrote it in 17 and it became active in 18.
Okay. So it went over 4 years, which to me is a good, you know, like you get to reach a little bit, but it's not too far out that it feels remote. At least not to me. To me, 4 years doesn't feel like a long time anymore. So, but does anybody have questions or comments about planning after they read that chapter of the trustee manual.
My only comment would be if Carrie, if you have anything to add, either as you've been sitting through our meeting or about this or any other issue.
Not right now.
Oh, well, thank you. And we appreciate you being
Your
here.
input, though. Okay. Well, that does bring us to standing reports. And Steve, I apologize if we've been glossing over that in your first few meetings. When we met in person, we did always take time to talk about correspondence and reports. So if you have questions or comments, please feel free.
Okay.
This is Andrew. I had a question for Bruce.
Yeah.
Bruce, this is way out in left field, but given the shortage of chips and stuff, I know you've been replacing things. Can we scavenge and sell our chips or extra lumber or, whatever to make some, make a little extra cash while everything is in demand?
I have no idea if the chips would be transferable to other devices. Doesn't seem to be affecting. I can get computers right now. I don't know, laptops were in short supply for a while.
Okay.
I don't think we have any lumber. Everything's built out of metal around.
All right.
I was actually thinking how to get rid of my stuff for free rather than having it recycled. I want to possibly give some equipment away that's outdated. So.
Maybe the restore.
And actually, John's going to be trying to purchase some lumber here for repairs on the garage. So, we're looking for lumber. So,
given the cost, I don't know if we want to postpone those for another year.
Well, and actually, I had a question. So the Peter White conference room is open, and the community room and Shira's rooms are going to be open again on June 21st. Andrew, does that mean we should meet in person next month?
That's up to the comfort of the board.
Okay, so we have the option either way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. We can continue to meet via Zoom through December of this year, but if everyone would like to meet in person, we can also do that in the community room.
Okay.
Right now, we just need to keep, let's see, I guess that rule was suspended for board meetings. The capacity of 25 people from different families, that's the limit right now. And they did suspend that for public board meetings due to the Open Meetings Act. So we can cram them in there for a board meeting.
Yeah, nice. Okay, well then before the next meeting, I'll just take a poll, I think, of the board over email.
Yeah.
Although, I mean, if anybody wants, well, Andrew excused himself. Steve, if you want to weigh in, you're welcome to.
Okay, I'd be comfortable either way, but I'd be comfortable meeting in person.
Okay. Good to know. Thank you.
yeah, the only thing, Ann, is that skirting on the Open Meeting Act of doing a poll. I don't know.
Oh, is it? Okay. Oh, good. That's good to know. Thank you, Rick. I'll keep that in mind.
I did just have a couple questions and comments on the reports. First of all, I mean, I haven't seen these before, but Heather's report, I thought 212,000 in grant and related funding. That's fantastic.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Really good.
It really is.
Yeah. And then a question for Bruce. You mentioned CARES stimulus funding. Next round of it is. Can you just give me a thumbnail of what that might be, like how much that might be and what it can be used for?
Well, there's a lot of opportunity there. We don't know how much it's going to be.
Okay.
or how it's going to be distributed. So
We don't know yet.
yeah, we don't really know yet. The Library of Michigan had maybe Andrea can speak to this, that we were on a conference call with them, like a webinar. They want input on how it should be used, what types of projects they should be funding with it.
Okay.
So certainly hotspots are one opportunity, but there's a number of other things that they can do.
Okay. Still being determined, it sounds like, right?
To be determined, yeah. It sounds like it's going to be in the next fiscal year.
Okay.
We have to get through the current fiscal year. We still have expenditures on our current CARES Act. We spent all the money except for the little bit that comes through every month going to our charter circuit upgrade. We were allowed to use a little bit for that.
Yeah. Okay.
One thing that's unclear right now, the Library of Michigan, I think, is trying to simplify the distribution of CARES funds for this next round. So instead of doing wide open grants that have a certain amount, a cap for each library in the state, I think they're going to do a larger rollout of a project that everybody can choose to participate in or not. At least that's what they've been talking about. So I assume that we'll hear more as they get further into the planning of that.
And just two more quick things. One was, it's good to see service numbers coming back up. It's interesting between like last March and April versus this March and April. That's heartening for sure, right?
Sure is. It's heartening
Yeah.
for our staff too.
I'll
It's
bet.
really that we're librarians love statistics, and it's really hard to see those numbers be so consistently low.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, to
No,
have the empty building, like it just didn't feel nice.
So
yeah.
no, we've had a couple days in the last couple of weeks that have felt really busy, and there's been a lot of people in the building, and there's been a lot of activity, and that just feels a lot more normal.
Good.
Yep.
Good.
We've been averaging anywhere from 200 to 300 people a day now. So
Good. Good to hear. Really good to hear. Just my last comment was, is the facility, in a couple agendas, we were talking about the major work that had to be done on climate control. Is that pretty stable now? I mean, we don't know yet, maybe.
So most of the hardware side of that upgrade has now been figured out. The ACC ran into a little bit of a glitch in getting the Delta control to talk to basically the Johnson control chiller. So they had a lot of trial and error. They now have them communicating. So the owner of ACC will be writing the software upgrades to accomplish what we're looking for. So it's getting there. It's not quite there, Steve. But a great question.
It looks like we're on the road. The solution we've implemented, once that software is in place, looks like it'll take care of the uncertainty that introduced, huh?
Yes, yeah.
Okay, perfect. Good to hear. Yep. That's all I had.
The sprinkler system project has been in process as well. So John's been working with Nimbus to get the sprinklers installed, and the garden ladies are very, very happy.
Oh, good.
It seems like we might need the sprinkler this year quite a lot.
Yeah.
Wait, it seems like I had a question about. Oh, it's gone. Sorry. Never mind. Any other questions or comments on standing reports?
Nope.
So we do have a joint meeting with the Township Advisory Council on June 2nd, and then our next meeting is June 15th. And if there's no other business, I will ask for a motion to adjourn.
If I can, before the adjournment, I will not be able to make the June 2nd meeting.
Okay. Thank you for letting me know. May I have a motion to adjourn?
I'll make the motion. This is Steve.
Andrew,
Second.
second. I'll do a roll call vote. Well, is there any comment or discussion? Andrew, how do you vote?
Aye.
Steve, how do you vote?
Aye.
This is Ann. I also vote aye. Meeting is adjourned at 6:32.
Okay.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, everyone. So,
Thank you.
bye-bye.